My thrill-seeking boyfriend shattered my heart when he dumped me for a dangerous mafia princess. But his arrogant smirk permanently vanished when her terrifying cartel father dropped to his knees and kissed my ring. Elena, and I spent the last 3 years pretending to be a sweet, innocent, and incredibly boring florist to see if Dante actually loved me for who I am. But Dante was disgustingly obsessed with power and the criminal underworld, constantly complaining about my quiet lifestyle and my simple, flowery dresses. One evening, he aggressively shattered a vase of my expensive roses, laughing cruelly as a fleet of black-armored SUVs pulled up to my tiny shop. A dangerously hot, heavily tattooed brunette named Valentina stepped out of the lead vehicle, dripping in dark leather and holding a gold-plated pistol. I need a woman who rules the city with fear, Elena, not a pathetic girl who arranges tulips, Dante sneered viciously at me. Valentina looked me up and down with pure disgust, violently kissing my boyfriend right in front of my face before they sped away into the criminal underworld. I was left standing alone in my ruined flower shop, but instead of crying pathetically, a cold, calculating, and incredibly dangerous alpha female smile slowly spread across my glossy lips. What Dante and Valentina didn't know was that I wasn't just a simple, broke florist. I was the hidden supreme godmother of the global Obsidian Syndicate. And the most hilarious, sickening twist of all was that Valentina wasn't a true cartel queen at all. Her father was merely a mid-level enforcer working under my absolute command. While Dante thought he had secured a massive criminal empire, my loyal assassins informed me that Valentina had been secretly stealing money from my syndicate to fund her flashy, fake mafia lifestyle. 2 weeks later, Valentina hosted a lavish, highly illegal underground poker tournament to blindly show off her handsome new toy boy to her dangerous friends. The smoky casino was packed with the city's most lethal criminals when I suddenly pushed past the armed guards, wearing a dangerously tight, custom blood-red revenge dress that pushed up my massive cleavage. Security! Shoot this broke, pathetic florist right now before she ruins my party! Valentina shrieked aggressively, pointing her gold-plated pistol directly at my face. But instead of shooting me, the 50 heavily armed cartel members in the room instantly lowered their weapons and bowed their heads in perfect, terrified unison. Dante physically stumbled backward, his face turning entirely pale with sheer unadulterated terror as a massive scarred man walked out of the shadows. It was Valentina's father, the ruthless cartel boss, but instead of protecting his daughter, he immediately dropped to his knees and kissed the massive diamond syndicate ring on my finger. "Forgive my foolish daughter, Supreme Godmother," he begged with absolute freezing fear, his voice echoing through the silent, shocked crowd. Valentina's jaw dropped completely, her gold pistol falling to the casino floor as she realized she had just threatened her ultimate, untouchable boss. "I am the head of the Obsidian Syndicate, and as of this exact second, your entire bloodline is stripped of all power," I declared, staring at them with pure, ruthless dominance. Dante dropped heavily to his knees, sobbing hysterically and begging for mercy as my elite assassins violently dragged Valentina away into the shadows. "Elena, please! I wanted danger, but not like this! I still love you!" Dante cried pathetically, desperately trying to grab my expensive high heels. I aggressively yanked my leg away from his filthy grasp, looking down at his ruined, crying face with absolute, cold-blooded zero pity. Today, my power-hungry ex-boyfriend is scrubbing floors in my underground torture cells, and his fake mafia princess is exiled forever, while I sit flawlessly on my absolute throne as the ultimate queen of the underworld. My arrogant new husband formed an inappropriate alliance with my own 20-year-old daughter, completely unaware that I am the leading CEO of a global private intelligence firm. For 2 years, I played the role of a supportive, oblivious mother and a devoted wife, giving Julian and Mia a life of absolute luxury. But last month, my hidden security network alerted me to an unprofessional conspiracy. I watched through the hidden cameras as Julian influenced my daughter in my own living room. He was manipulating her, convincing her to help him tamper with my legal authorizations to access my massive offshore trust fund.
They thought I was just a wealthy, gullible widow they could easily replace and ignore. What those two arrogant individuals didn't realize was that I had already frozen every single asset and redirected their unauthorized transfers directly to a federal investigative unit. Tonight, Julian was hosting a lavish gala for himself inside my mansion, celebrating his supposed new fortune with my daughter proudly by his side. I didn't walk down the stairs to beg for my family back. I pushed open the grand mahogany doors wearing a flawless white designer suit, flanked by an elite team of federal investigators. The upbeat party music abruptly stopped as the wealthy crowd gasped in absolute shock. Julian stumbled backward, his arrogant smile vanishing instantly as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "What is happening here?" Mia stuttered, her face turning pale white with sheer terror as she realized the investigation was real. "I'm officially terminating our legal connection," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the glowing digital tablet, fully exposing Julian's massive financial fraud and their unprofessional conduct on the massive party screens. The federal agents calmly detained Julian in front of the entire elite crowd, securing him for immediate questioning. Mia fell to her knees, sobbing and begging me to let her keep her status. I looked down at the people who betrayed my trust, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your access to my world is permanently denied," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted out the door to face justice. Today, they are facing a federal courtroom while I rule my intelligence empire in perfect peace. If you love seeing toxic people face the consequences of their own choices, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below, how long would you have waited to expose them? My toxic husband tried to lock me in a psychiatric facility to steal my tech empire, completely unaware that my master AI still controlled his entire life. For 4 years, I was the hidden genius behind our multi-billion-dollar smart home company, while Julian played the charismatic CEO. But his greed became an absolute obsession. Last month, he forged my medical records, claimed I was mentally unstable, and had me forcefully committed to a remote wellness clinic. He immediately moved his secret mistress Valeria into my fully automated, hyper-luxurious smart mansion. They thought they had permanently erased me and secured my entire fortune. What those two pathetic traitors didn't realize was that I wrote the foundational code for the mansion's artificial intelligence, and my biometric signature was the only master key. I quietly walked out of the clinic using my hidden administrative access, completely undetected. Tonight, Julian and Valeria were hosting a massive, incredibly expensive corporate gala inside my house, showing off my stolen technology to hundreds of elite investors. I didn't return wearing a hospital gown to beg for my freedom. Sitting in a black SUV parked outside, I pulled out my tablet and activated the ultimate lockdown protocol. The upbeat party music abruptly stopped, the mansion's heavy steel security shutters violently slammed shut, and the interior lights turned a terrifying, glowing red. The wealthy guests gasped in absolute shock as my voice echoed through the surround sound system, exposing Julian's massive financial fraud and my illegal confinement. Julian stumbled backward, his face turning pale white as the doors finally unlocked, revealing me standing in the entrance, wearing a flawless black designer suit. And I wasn't alone. I was flanked by a highly professional team of federal cyber crime investigators. Valeria fell to her knees in her expensive dress, sobbing and desperately trying to hide from the authorities. I walked right up to the arrogant narcissist who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your system access is permanently denied," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted out the door in heavy steel handcuffs. Today they are sitting in a federal penitentiary while I enjoy my fully automated, perfectly quiet mansion. If you love seeing arrogant traitors get permanently locked out of their stolen lives, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below. Would you have left them trapped inside a little longer?
My arrogant husband demanded a divorce so he could marry his billionaire female boss. But his cruel smirk permanently vanished when I walked into their corporate gala and fired them both on the spot. I'm Mia, and I spent the last 5 years playing the role of a quiet, supportive stay-at-home wife to help Ethan build his career from absolutely nothing. But the moment Ethan got promoted to senior vice president, he completely changed, becoming disgustingly obsessed with high society status and power. He started having a dirty, secret affair with Victoria, the ruthless and incredibly wealthy regional CEO of his tech company. One night, Ethan aggressively threw signed divorce papers directly into my face, laughing cruelly as Victoria stepped right out of my own master bedroom. I need a powerful woman who can elevate my career, Mia, not a pathetic housewife who just cooks and cleans, Ethan sneered viciously at me. Victoria looked me up and down with pure disgust, violently tossing a $100 bill at my feet and telling me to pack my cheap bags and leave. I was left standing alone in the hallway, but instead of crying, a cold, calculating, and incredibly dark smile slowly spread across my face. What Ethan and Victoria didn't know was that I wasn't just a simple, broke housewife. I was the hidden, sole billionaire heiress of the sterling global conglomerate. While Ethan was away at the office, I was secretly trading billions offshore, and I had just initiated a hostile corporate takeover of Victoria's entire company. 2 weeks later, Victoria hosted a massive, highly publicized corporate gala to officially celebrate Ethan's promotion, and the grand ballroom was packed with the city's wealthiest elites and board members when I suddenly pushed open the heavy oak doors, wearing a dangerously tight, custom black revenge dress. "Security! Throw this broke, pathetic trash out of my gala right now!" Victoria shrieked aggressively, pointing her trembling finger directly at me. But the heavily armed security guards didn't move a single muscle. Instead, the entire board of directors rushed forward and bowed perfectly to me in unison. Ethan physically stumbled backward, his face turning entirely pale with sheer unadulterated terror as my lead attorney handed me a glowing microphone. "I am the new global chairwoman of this entire conglomerate," I announced with absolute, freezing authority, my voice echoing through the silent, shocked room. "Victoria, your division is officially liquidated, and Ethan, I am legally seizing all your corporate shares to pay off your massive hidden debts." Ethan dropped heavily to his knees on the cold marble floor, sobbing hysterically and begging for mercy while Victoria screamed in total, public humiliation. I aggressively yanked my expensive high heel away from his grasping hands, coldly ordering my security to drag them both out into the freezing rain. Today, my cheating husband and his arrogant boss are sweeping floors for minimum wage, while I sit flawlessly on my absolute throne as the ultimate corporate queen.
The evil stepmother violently fired me from my own mansion, completely unaware of my terrifying true identity. I am Alara, the original billionaire wife and the biological mother of the little girl she was torturing. 3 years ago, my husband's greedy new mistress sabotaged my private jet, leaving me for dead in a fiery crash. But I survived, and I returned to my own home disguised as a pathetic, invisible nanny. For agonizing months, I swallowed my pride and endured the stepmother's brutal slaps and daily humiliations. I did it all just to protect my 5-year-old daughter from her toxic gold-digging claws. But yesterday, Isabella finally crossed the ultimate unforgivable line. She staged a fake kidnapping, brutally hit my little girl, and blamed it all on me so she could steal the entire family trust fund. "Get out of my house, you disgusting trash!" she screamed, throwing my cheap bags into the pouring rain. Julian, my supposed grieving husband, just stood there in his expensive suit and watched her throw me out like an animal. But those pathetic idiots didn't realize I had already planted hidden cameras in every single room of that massive mansion. Today, I didn't return wearing cheap, dirty nanny clothes. I violently kicked down the massive front doors wearing a custom designer power suit, flanked by 30 heavily armed federal agents. Isabella dropped her expensive champagne glass, her perfect face turning pale white in pure, unadulterated horror as she saw my face. You died in that crash, she stuttered, physically stumbling backward and falling to the marble floor. Did I whispered coldly, elegantly tearing her fake autopsy report into tiny, useless pieces. I snapped my fingers, and the federal agents immediately slammed the screaming stepmother against the cold marble wall. Julian fell heavily to his knees, sobbing pathetically and begging for my forgiveness when he saw the undeniable proof of her crimes on the glowing screens. I am taking my daughter, my house, and my $50 billion empire back, I announced to the dead silent room. I picked up my crying daughter, held her tight, and watched the FBI drag the screaming traitors away in heavy steel handcuffs. My toxic biological mother cruelly humiliated the love of my life, completely unaware that she was digging her own financial grave. For an entire year, my handsome boyfriend, Julian, pretended to be a struggling, underpaid mechanic who could barely afford rent. My mother, a terrifyingly arrogant and status-obsessed aristocrat, absolutely despised him for being poor and ruining her perfect family image. Yesterday, I brought Julian to our luxury mansion, and she unleashed her absolute worst, most toxic behavior. Get your filthy, cheap boots off my imported marble floors, you pathetic beggar! She screamed, violently throwing a stack of cash directly at his face. She actually slapped him, called security, and forced them to drag him out into the freezing heavy rain. You are marrying the Duke's son tomorrow, and that piece of trash is dead to us, she hissed, locking me in my bedroom. I cried fake tears and fell to the floor. But the truth was, I wasn't heartbroken at all. I was the only person in the entire world who knew Julian's terrifying, hidden secret. The poor mechanic my mother just assaulted was actually the supreme CEO of the Vanguard global banking empire. The very next day, I was forced to stand at the altar in a $1 million white wedding dress next to an arrogant fake groom. My mother was proudly raising her champagne glass to the elite crowd, celebrating her ultimate greedy victory. But suddenly, the deafening roar of a massive military helicopter completely shattered the stained glass windows of the church. The chopper landed violently in the courtyard, blowing away the wedding flowers and sending the wealthy guests into a blind panic. My mother laughed, assuming the royal guards had arrived to arrest a trespasser, but instead, 50 heavily armed elite federal tactical agents marched down the aisle and perfectly bowed to the man stepping out of the helicopter. Julian walked into the church wearing a flawless custom designer suit, radiating absolute, terrifying billionaire dominance. My mother physically stumbled backward, dropping her expensive crystal glass as her face turned completely white with sheer terror. Julian didn't look at her. He walked straight to the altar, handed the federal agents a glowing digital foreclosure document, and took my hand. I just bought your entire family trust, your mansion, and your massive debts, Julian announced coldly to my horrified mother. The armed agents violently slammed the fake groom against the wall and arrested my mother for decades of massive corporate tax fraud. She collapsed heavily to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, begging me to save her from total bankruptcy. I elegantly lifted my wedding veil, looked down at her ruined face, and whispered, "Know your place, Mother. Julian and I walked out of the church together, leaving her completely destroyed, bankrupt, and rotting in a federal prison cell. I caught my arrogant husband in a deeply compromising position with his secretary, but they had absolutely no idea I was the secret chairman of their entire company. For 2 years, I played the role of a sweet, clueless housewife, quietly funding Julian's fast-tracked corporate career through my private holding firm. I let him believe he was a self-made genius. But yesterday, I visited his corporate office to surprise him with lunch. When I opened his heavy mahogany doors, I saw the ultimate, sickening betrayal. He was intimately tangled with his secretary, Vanessa, in a highly suggestive embrace right on top of his executive desk. When they noticed me standing in the doorway, they didn't even stop. Vanessa slowly buttoned her blouse, laughed cruelly, and told me to leave the adults to their business. Julian coldly ordered me to go home and wait for the divorce papers, calling me a boring nobody who didn't belong in his high-class world. I backed out of the office in tears, but the moment the elevator doors closed, my crying stopped instantly. What those two pathetic traitors didn't realize was that my signature was on every single corporate lease and major stock certificate in that building. Today, Julian was hosting a massive board meeting to formally accept his promotion to CEO. He was standing at the head of the table, bragging to the investors, with Vanessa smiling proudly by his side. I didn't return to the office as the crying, weak housewife. I pushed open the glass boardroom doors wearing a flawless crimson designer suit, letting my icy blonde hair fall perfectly down my back. And I wasn't alone. I was flanked by a massive team of elite federal financial investigators. The lively boardroom abruptly fell dead silent as the wealthy executives gasped in absolute shock at my transformation. Julian stumbled backward, dropping his expensive pen as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "Who let you in here?" Vanessa stuttered, her seductive confidence completely shattering as her face turned pale with sheer terror. "I'm just taking my seat at the head of the table," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the digital corporate records, fully exposing Julian's massive embezzlement, the stolen money he used to fund their affair. Julian's arrogant smile vanished instantly as the federal agents calmly detained him in front of the entire board. Vanessa fell to her knees, sobbing and begging the agents to let her go. I walked right up to the front of the room, looking down at the pathetic narcissists who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "You are both terminated," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted away to face justice. Today, they are sitting in a federal courtroom with absolutely nothing while I rule my empire from the chairman's seat. If you love seeing toxic cheaters get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below, how satisfying was their downfall? My arrogant billionaire boss forced me to clean up trash at his luxury wedding. He and his cruel bride wanted to humiliate me in front of hundreds of elite guests. But they had absolutely no idea who was actually hiding behind my cheap glasses. I'm Alara, and I am not just a pathetic underpaid corporate secretary. I am an undercover senior federal inspector specializing in taking down corrupt billionaires. For 2 agonizing years, I played the role of a weak, invisible servant. I quietly fetched their coffees while secretly hacking into their offshore bank accounts. My boss, Julian, had stolen billions of dollars from innocent pensioners to fund his lavish lifestyle. And his beautiful, toxic bride, Isabella, was completely complicit in his massive fraud. On their wedding day, Isabella made it her personal mission to torture me. She deliberately threw a full glass of dark red wine right into my face. "Know your place, garbage," she laughed, while Julian smirked in his custom white tuxedo. I didn't cry, and I didn't run away in shame. I simply wiped the wine from my eyes and reached into my cheap catering apron. I pulled out a glowing red remote control and stared directly into Isabella's soul. With one satisfying click, I completely hijacked the massive LED screens above the wedding altar. Instead of romantic photos, high-definition security footage began playing for everyone to see. It was Isabella, passionately kissing the best man in the bridal suite just an hour ago. The entire ballroom erupted into chaotic gasps as Isabella dropped to her knees in sheer panic. Julian's face turned purple with rage, but his anger didn't last long. Before he could scream, the heavy stained glass doors of the church violently burst open. 30 heavily armed FBI tactical agents stormed down the aisle with their rifles raised. They slammed Julian against the pristine white altar and violently slapped handcuffs on his wrists. Isabella screamed hysterically, begging for Julian to save her, but he was completely paralyzed with fear. I slowly took off my cheap glasses and dropped my stained apron onto the marble floor. Underneath, I was wearing a dangerously sharp, custom-tailored designer suit. The tactical commander walked up to me and saluted perfectly in front of the terrified elite crowd. "Target secured, Chief Inspector," he announced as Julian's jaw dropped in absolute horror. I walked right past the sobbing bride and looked my ex-boss dead in the eyes. Today, they are sharing a concrete prison cell while I hunt down the next billionaire.
No, it can't be you.
Yes, Julian. It's me.
I went undercover as a maid in my own penthouse just to watch my fiancé cheat with my best friend. I am the youngest self-made billionaire in the country, but I desperately wanted to test the true loyalty of the man I was about to marry. I secretly hired a fake management company dressed up in a cheap maid uniform and watched as my beautiful gold-digging best friend, Chloe, made her move. Julian and Chloe intimately tangled together on my expensive leather sofa, silently mocking me and holding back cruel laughter as I quietly scrubbed the marble floors right in front of them. They thought I was just a pathetic, invisible servant. The very next morning, Julian handed me a crumpled $20 bill with a toxic smirk, firing me and ordering me to pack my trash and leave his supposedly owned penthouse. I walked out into the freezing, heavy rain, but my tears were entirely fake. What those two pathetic traitors didn't realize was that I owned the building, the company Julian worked for, and the very bank accounts they were trying to drain. Tonight, they hosted a lavish engagement party using my stolen credit cards. I didn't return to the building wearing a cheap, dirty apron. I pushed open the grand penthouse doors wearing a flawless crimson designer suit. And I wasn't alone. I was flanked by a massive team of elite federal financial investigators. The lively party music abruptly stopped as the crowd gasped in absolute shock. Julian stumbled backward, his crystal glass shattering on the marble floor as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. You're the maid?" Chloe stuttered, desperately trying to hide behind him as her flawless face turned pale with sheer terror. "I'm actually the owner," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the real digital files, fully exposing their massive financial fraud and immediate bankruptcy. Julian's arrogant smile vanished instantly as the federal agents calmly detained him in front of the entire elite crowd. Chloe fell to her knees, sobbing and begging me to let her stay in my luxurious home. I looked down at the people who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "You're both fired," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted away. Today, they are sitting in a federal courtroom facing justice, while I rule my empire in absolute peace. If you love seeing toxic gold diggers get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now and let me know in the comments below. How would you have tested them?
My greedy boyfriend completely shattered my heart when he dumped me for an older billionaire sugar mama, but his arrogant smirk permanently vanished when I showed up to their engagement party and had them both arrested for massive corporate fraud. Emma and I pretended to be a struggling, minimum-wage barista to see if Ryan actually loved me for who I am. But Ryan was disgustingly obsessed with luxury, constantly complaining about our tiny apartment and my cheap, simple clothes. One evening, he aggressively threw my promise ring into the dirt, laughing cruelly as a massive, glowing Rolls-Royce pulled up to the curb. A wealthy, heavily Botoxed older woman named Stella stepped out of the luxury car, dripping in expensive diamonds and a tight gold dress. I need a woman who can buy me Rolexes and penthouses, Emma, not a pathetic girl who smells like cheap coffee beans, Ryan sneered viciously at me. Stella looked me up and down with pure disgust, violently kissing my boyfriend right in front of my face before they sped away into the night. I was left standing alone on the dark pavement, but instead of crying pathetically, a cold, calculating, and incredibly dangerous alpha female smile slowly spread across my face. What Ryan and Stella didn't know was that I wasn't just a simple broke barista. I was the hidden, sole billionaire heiress and ultimate CEO of the sterling global conglomerate. And the most hilarious, sickening twist of all was that Stella wasn't a billionaire at all. She was merely a mid-level regional manager working at my company. While Ryan thought he had secured a massive fortune, my private corporate investigators discovered that Stella had been secretly embezzling millions of dollars from my corporate accounts to fund her fake, flashy sugar mama lifestyle. 2 weeks later, Stella hosted a lavish, highly publicized engagement party on a rented mega yacht to blindly show off her handsome new toy boy to her snobbish friends. The yacht deck was packed with wealthy guests when I suddenly pushed past the security guards, wearing a dangerously tight, custom black revenge dress that pushed up my massive cleavage. Security! Throw this broke, pathetic barista off my luxury yacht right now before I call the police! Stella shrieked aggressively, pointing her trembling finger directly at my face. But instead of security, 6 heavily armed FBI agents stormed onto the wooden deck, immediately surrounding the horrified, frozen couple. Ryan physically stumbled backward, his face turning entirely pale with sheer, unadulterated terror as I slowly pulled a glowing red corporate audit file from my designer clutch. Actually, Stella, you don't own this yacht or that Rolls-Royce because you stole exactly $12 million from my personal company, I announced with absolute, freezing authority, my voice echoing through the silent, shocked crowd. Stella's jaw dropped completely, her expensive champagne glass shattering on the wooden deck as she realized she had just insulted her supreme, untouchable boss. I am the global CEO of the Sterling Empire, and as of this exact second, you are officially fired and under federal arrest, I declared, staring at them with pure, ruthless dominance. Ryan dropped heavily to his knees, sobbing hysterically and begging for mercy, as the FBI agents violently slammed heavy steel handcuffs onto Stella's wrists. Emma, please, I didn't know she was broke. I still love you, Ryan cried pathetically, desperately trying to grab my expensive high heels. I aggressively yanked my leg away from his filthy grasp, looking down at his ruined, crying face with absolute, cold-blooded zero pity. Today, my gold-digging ex-boyfriend is buried in massive legal debt, and his fake sugar mama is rotting in a federal prison cell, while I sit flawlessly on my absolute throne as the ultimate corporate queen.
My narcissistic husband publicly dumped me on a live podcast, completely unaware that I secretly wrote the code for his entire billion-dollar tech empire. For 5 exhausting years, I hid my beauty and worked exclusively in the shadows. I spent sleepless nights building the revolutionary algorithm that turned Julian into a Silicon Valley superstar. I let him take all the credit, wearing oversized hoodies and thick glasses, happy to just support the man I loved. But massive wealth and fame turned him into an absolute monster. Yesterday, he went on a massively popular live-streamed podcast with his new secret girlfriend, a flashy supermodel named Roxy. Right there, in front of millions of live viewers, he laughed cruelly into the microphone, calling me a boring plain nobody who contributed absolutely nothing to his success. He announced he was divorcing me to upgrade his brand, effectively locking me out of the very company I built from the ground up. I watched the broadcast from our living room, but I didn't shed a single tear. What Julian's massive ego made him forget was that I never gave him the master patents, and I secretly programmed an absolute kill switch into the core server architecture. Today was the most important day of his miserable life, the highly anticipated global launch event for his new flagship software. He was strutting across the glowing stage, bragging to thousands of investors and reporters. I didn't show up as the messy, exhausted nerd he threw away. I pushed open the auditorium doors wearing a flawless, vibrant magenta designer suit, letting my blonde hair fall perfectly down my back. I was flanked by a team of elite federal financial investigators who had been tracking his illegal asset transfers. The electronic stadium music abruptly stopped as the massive crowd gasped in absolute shock at my transformation. Julian stumbled backward on the stage, his microphone dropping from his trembling hand as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "Who let you in here?" he stuttered, his face turning pale with sheer terror as he realized who held the real power. "I'm just fixing a glitch in my system," I whispered softly, pulling out my smartphone. With one simple tap, I triggered the kill switch, instantly crashing his entire global network and turning the massive screens behind him a glowing, terrifying red. Julian's arrogant smile vanished instantly as the federal agents calmly walked onto the stage and detained him for massive corporate fraud and intellectual property theft. Roxy fell to her knees in the front row, sobbing and begging the agents not to freeze her stolen bank accounts. I walked right up to the stage, looking down at the pathetic narcissist who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your system has been deleted," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted away to face justice. Today, they are sitting in a federal courtroom with absolutely zero influence, while I relaunch my company as the sole billionaire CEO. If you love seeing arrogant narcissists get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below, how satisfying was that crash? My greedy husband bribed my private physician to keep me in a medically induced slumber, completely unaware that my body had already built a tolerance to their unauthorized sedatives. For 3 agonizing weeks, I was trapped in my own luxury medical suite. I played the role of the tragic, comatose billionaire wife, while Julian and Dr. Chloe drained my medical technology empire. I laid perfectly still in that hospital bed, silently listening as Julian and Chloe formed an incredibly unprofessional conspiracy right next to my seemingly unconscious body. They laughed cruelly, celebrating how easily they had forged my medical proxy documents to seize my entire $50 billion corporate trust. They thought I was permanently silenced, just a wealthy stepping stone for their new life together. What those 2 arrogant individuals didn't realize was that I had secretly woken up days ago. During the night, while they slept in my mansion, I quietly accessed the secure medical terminal in my room and forwarded their forged prescriptions and massive offshore transfers directly to a federal investigative task force. Tonight, Julian was hosting a lavish charity gala to formally announce my permanent condition and officially take over my position as CEO, with Chloe proudly standing by his side as the new chief medical officer. I didn't stay in that hospital bed waiting for a miracle. I pushed open the grand mahogany doors of the ballroom wearing a flawless sapphire blue designer suit, flanked by an elite team of Federal Medical Board investigators. The upbeat orchestral music abruptly stopped as the wealthy crowd gasped in absolute shock at my complete recovery. Julian stumbled backward, his arrogant, grieving smile vanishing instantly as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "But you're supposed to be asleep," Chloe stuttered, her face turning pale white with sheer terror as she realized her medical license and her freedom were completely over. "I'm wide awake, and I'm officially terminating our partnership," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the glowing digital tablet, fully exposing their massive financial fraud and severe medical malpractice on the massive party screens. The federal agents calmly detained Julian in front of the entire elite crowd, securing him for immediate questioning. Chloe fell to her knees in her expensive designer coat, sobbing and desperately begging me to drop the federal charges. I looked down at the people who tried to bury me alive, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your access to my life is permanently revoked," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted out the door to face severe justice. Today, they are facing decades in a federal penitentiary, while I rule my medical empire with perfect clarity. If you love seeing toxic people face the absolute consequences of their own choices, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below, would you have let them finish their little speech? My evil stepsister faked a pregnancy to steal my husband, completely unaware that I secretly owned the very empire they were trying to inherit. For 4 years, I played the role of the quiet, devoted housewife, financially supporting my handsome husband Liam and welcoming my beautiful blonde stepsister Mia into our luxury home. But last week, I returned early from a business trip and saw the ultimate betrayal. Liam and Mia were tangled together in the master bedroom, laughing cruelly about how perfectly their plan was working. Mia proudly held up a fake positive pregnancy test, bragging about how they were going to force me into a divorce and take half of my supposed meager savings. When I stepped into the room, they didn't even show a shred of guilt. Liam sneered, telling me he was finally having a child with a real woman and ordered me to pack my bags and leave the mansion he mistakenly thought he paid for. I walked out into the freezing rain with a small suitcase, but my heartbroken tears were entirely fake. What those two pathetic traitors didn't realize was that I was the anonymous majority shareholder of the massive corporate firm where Liam worked. The mansion, the cars, and the bank accounts were all securely locked under my private holding company. Today, they were hosting a lavish, incredibly expensive baby shower in the penthouse ballroom, celebrating a child that didn't even exist. I didn't return wearing cheap clothes to beg for my husband back. I pushed open the grand ballroom doors wearing a flawless emerald green designer suit. And I wasn't alone. I was flanked by a massive team of elite federal financial investigators. The lively party music abruptly stopped as the crowd gasped in absolute shock. Liam stumbled backward, popping a pink balloon as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "What are you doing here?" Mia stuttered, desperately trying to hide her fake belly as her flawless face turned pale with sheer terror. "I'm here to collect my property," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the digital medical records, fully exposing her fake pregnancy, along with the evidence of Liam's massive corporate embezzlement. Liam's arrogant smile vanished instantly as the federal agents calmly detained him in front of the entire elite crowd. Mia fell to her knees, sobbing and begging me to let her stay in my luxurious home. I looked down at the people who betrayed me, radiating absolute untouchable control. "You are both evicted," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted away to face justice. Today, they are sitting in a federal courtroom with absolutely nothing, while I rule my empire in complete peace. If you love seeing toxic traitors get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now, and let me know in the comments below. How would you have exposed them?
My greedy husband completely shattered my heart when he dumped me for a billionaire heiress. But his arrogant smirk permanently vanished when I crashed their wedding and had her arrested for stealing my credit cards.
Fresh bread.
I'm Chloe, and I pretended to be a struggling minimum-wage bakery owner to see if Julian actually loved me for who I am. But Julian was disgustingly obsessed with wealth, constantly complaining about our tiny apartment and my cheap, simple clothes. One evening, he aggressively threw signed divorce papers directly into my face, laughing cruelly as a glowing red Ferrari pulled up to our curb. A breathtakingly hot, heavily glammed-up brunette named Scarlett stepped out of the luxury car, dripping in expensive diamonds and a dangerously tight red dress. "I need a woman who can build an empire with me, Chloe, not a pathetic girl who smells like cheap flour." Julian sneered viciously at me. Scarlett looked me up and down with pure disgust, violently kissing my husband right in front of my face before they sped away into the night. I was left standing alone on the dark pavement. But instead of crying pathetically, a cold, calculating, and incredibly dangerous alpha female smile slowly spread across my face. What Julian and Scarlett didn't know was that I wasn't just a simple, broke baker. I was the hidden soul billionaire CEO of the sterling luxury conglomerate. And the most hilarious, sickening twist of all was that Scarlett wasn't a billionaire heiress.